I'm Strimbitsky. I'm on Team Kangorillas, who are currently the reigning world champions on LAN. So, in order to know how to throw in Echo VR, you need to know how throwing works in Echo VR. So, there's three things that are used to calculate throwing. So, there's arm speed, there's wrist speed, and then there's movement speed. So the maximum or the cap for arm speed is 12 meters per second. The cap or max for wrist speed is 4 meters per second. And then the cap for movement speed is going to be 4.7 meters per second. Now, all of these added up together in all of their respective maximums would add up to a 19 meter per second shot, or an 18.7. All right, so now let's talk throwing settings.
Now, first, you're going to go into your settings. You're going to go left, left, left. You're going to see the gameplay throwing tab. Now, as a disclaimer, these settings can and probably will change in the future. So I would avoid using extremes or messing with these settings too much or too far from the defaults. Now, the biggest thing is to switch the experimental throwing setting to either predictive or latest sensor data. Right now, off is simply too hard to throw at fast speeds right now. Personally, I think that predictive is better due to the Quest 2's limited tracking volume, which I'll touch on later. Now, for input dead zone, this setting affects how much you have to hit the grip button for it to start grabbing. Personally, I leave it at the Quest 2 default, which is 17.5%. For the release dead zone, I have this set to 1.0%, while the default is actually at 1.5%. I found that with a lower value than 1.0, I constantly dropped the disc on accident, and on a higher percent, I kept on overhooking my shots. So 1.0 was a nice middle ground for me. Now, wrist offset. This is a completely subjective value to you as a player and how the controller fits in your hand. So I found my setting by turning it up if I was overhooking and turning it down when I started underhooking. Eventually, I found my sweet spot of plus 6 degrees. I don't recommend using a high value like plus 45, even though people are saying they get easy 19s, because again, these settings might be tweaked in the future, and 45 degrees is a lot to angle your wrist by, and I don't think the devs are going to keep that much of a variation for long.
All right, so now that our settings are figured out, let's get back to throwing. Now, if you're on Quest 2 and you want to throw accurately and consistently, you're going to need to understand a couple things. So one, the tracking is a little bit iffy in terms of how fast you actually move. You can see if you do this as fast as you possibly can, you're able in real life to get ahead of your hands in game. So this can kind of translate into throwing. If you're throwing the disc faster than tracking can keep up, then that's going to mean that your tracking is probably going to fail and you're going to find inconsistencies with your throwing. So what I recommend on the Quest 2 is to limit how fast you're actually throwing in real life, because if every throw you're trying to throw as hard as you can, it'll be inconsistent for sure. So what you're going to want to do is basically, if you're losing tracking and you notice that, then try to throw a little bit slower. And if you're noticing that when you score, it's only a 15 or a 16, then maybe you want to start throwing a little bit faster. And it's all about finding the middle ground where you're getting about a 17 or an 18 meter per second shot consistently. Now, another thing to note is the tracking volume. This is really important because if you hold your controller behind your back, it's not going to have as good of tracking as if it was in front of your sensors. So if your shot is a really big windup where it goes behind you and then you throw, it'll be a lot less consistent. It's not necessarily bad, it just sometimes the tracking will fail and you're going to find inaccuracies or inconsistencies with your shot. So what I do personally is my shot style is in between an overhand and a sidearm. So I'm diagonal. So I'm trying to stay in that tracking volume as best as I can. And that is what I use to find the most consistent shot. However, it's all up to each individual Echo Arena player to find out how to incorporate their shot style into the Quest 2 tracking volume. All right, so general tips, of course, are keep your eye on your target, square up, always focus every shot and give it the good old college try, with good form and everything. But it does go deeper than that, and I'm going to assume that you know all of those sort of IRL throwing tips. So let's go into it. So remember what I was saying about how Echo handles throwing? Well, it's pretty simple. It's just arm speed plus wrist speed plus the movement speed equals total speed, or your throw speed. So arm speed is pretty self-explanatory. It's just how fast you can move your arm in real life, how fast the tracking tells the game that you moved your arm. So that's super self-explanatory, that's super easy. Now, wrist speed is a little bit more tricky. It's how you flick your wrist, the momentum of the angle of your controller moving. So how fast do you do this in your shot? So a lot of people have shots where they just flick it like this. And that's pretty good, but that was pretty much only wrist speed and no arm speed. And your trick is to trying to do that flick, that little flick like that, but you're trying to do that in your shot with your arm speed. Alright, so movement speed is by far the most important part of your throw in Echo Arena. If you want to have an easy time shooting accurately and consistently, you need to make sure that your movement speed in-game is in the same direction that you want to throw. Meaning, if I want to shoot in that goal, then I'm going to make sure that when I throw off this piece of geometry, that I'm going in that exact direction. By far, the hardest shots to make in Echo Arena are shots where your momentum is going the opposite way that you want to shoot. So say right now I want to shoot on the blue goal, but I'm going this way. I made it, but it was not easy and it felt incredibly awkward. So now comes the most crucial part of improving as a player, is actually practicing these tips and this knowledge. So number one is just drills by yourself in a private arena like I'm doing here. And I'll show you what I do, and I think it's important to do it like this, because if you're just sitting there and you're shooting the practice disc over and over, from a standstill not moving, it's not the same. It's important to be moving, using your movement speed, and sort of treating it like it's a real game. So I'm going to be getting my own rebounds, doing all that stuff, so let's see how I do. So I made that one. I'm gonna immediately rebound. I made that one too. I'm trying to cut to the disc here, trying to read the bounce. It's not bouncing there, it's gonna bounce on this block. I'm gonna shoot it immediately. I missed, so it's bouncing shield. I'm gonna go try to get the rebound. I'm gonna try to catch this and shoot behind the back. I missed really bad, but that's okay. I'm gonna get the rebound still. Get to lamp here. Bottom pocket, nice. I'm gonna try to cut over here, but I think I cleared it on myself. But yeah, you get the gist of it. That's how I would do shooting drills on my own in Arena, and I do that all the time. I do that while I queue for a pub. I do that while I'm just hanging out. Maybe I want to play some Echo, but I don't want to play a pub. It's really important to do all those things. So another really good way to practice all of this knowledge is just passing to your teammates in pubs. This might seem really obvious, but really, if you want to get better at throwing, passing is way better to do that than shooting, because you pass to your teammates, or you should be passing to your teammates way more often than you're shooting. And last but not least, of course, you want to practice your shooting by shooting on the goal. However, it is a very, very, very bad habit to learn how to shoot threes and shoot on goals by deciding to shoot on a goalie. Do not shoot on goalies when you're learning. You should be trying to shoot on smart, reliable, open goals and smart open goal opportunities. Now, what is a smart open goal opportunity, and when can you start shooting on goalies? I guess you're gonna have to tune into my next video.